It's the Hatfields and the McCoys, folks. The Hatfields and the McCoys. Viewers of the Hard Starboard radio channel ought to know what I'm referring to when I use that metaphor of the Hatfields and the McCoys. Pure, undiluted tribalism. Tribalism. Two sides fighting each other for basically no reason at all, except that they hate the other side. Each hates the other side. You know, the nature, the fundamental truth of the Hatfields versus McCoys feud from, I guess it was in the 19th century, was that neither tribe, neither family, whatever, remembered why, you know, what had caused the dispute in the first place, why they had been fighting each other for all this time. It got lost. It got forgotten. The only thing that they remembered was Hatfields hate McCoys and McCoys hate Hatfields. That was it. The reasons were forgotten and didn't even matter. And that is when polarization gets dangerous. And the only reason that you take any stance is because, well, the other side takes the opposite stance, so I gotta take this side of it. Because I can never be on the same side as them. David French has an example of it at nationalreview.com. This is from Monday. We know we're alarmingly partisan when Democrats hate Vladimir Putin, when they loved him just a month and a half ago, and Republicans love him when they hated him just a month and a half ago. See, you know, Democrats have been tribalistic for decades. Republicans were never that way. Republicans were the adult party. Republicans were the daddy party. Republicans were rational. Republicans were, I don't want to say logical, but they were the adults. And thanks to Trump mania, that's no longer the case. See, all it took for Vladimir Putin, who was the, you want to know who really won the 2016 election? Vladimir Putin. In fact, he couldn't lose because he had Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump both in his back pocket and so far up his ass they could tell what variety of borscht he had had for lunch that particular day. So all it took for Vladimir Putin to improve his standing with Republicans was to hack Democrats' computers. All it took for Putin to get Democrats to hate Russia was to hack Democrats' computers. American polarization has grown so bad that for millions of Americans, a geopolitical rival and strategic foe, aka an enemy of the United States, can redeem itself if that nation helps Republicans win elections. Remember how we used to just excoriate, just fricassee Democrats over the fact that, you know, nothing else matters to them except partisan politics. Nothing. They will take one side or the other side of an issue. It doesn't make any difference. If it helps them politically, they'll do it. They'll sell out the country. They'll sell out the planet. They'll do anything just for partisan advantage. Republicans didn't used to be that way. Now they are, which is why I'm no longer a Republican. You know, I mean, there's more than just winning. And you want to win long term, you got to stand for something. You know who said that? The last great Democrat president, Grover Cleveland, who said in the 1888 campaign when he was running for re-election, and he had vetoed some pension bills, which was considered, well, you can't do that. That's going to piss off Civil War veterans. You might be endangering your reelection. And President Cleveland said, what's the use of running for office or holding office if you don't stand for something? And now Republicans don't stand for any more than the Democrats do, which is another way of saying they're both parties of the left. Conversely, Democrats who shrugged their shoulders at Russian aggression and Russian hacks are now at the political version of DEFCON 1 because the DNC couldn't maintain the information technology security level of a moderately sophisticated middle school. In other words, we're starting to, well, let's not euphemize it, we're starting to hate each other more than we hate a nation that has not only been actively working to undermine vital American interests in the Middle East, in Europe, and elsewhere around the world, but has done so in part through aggressive military actions that have indiscriminately killed civilians by the thousands. Yes, the Russians are guilty of war crimes in Syria. Does Trump care? No, Trump supporters think Putin's great. Syria's not our problem, none of our business. Let the Russians have it. How does that differ from Barack Obama's foreign policy, one jot or tittle? 4 years ago, that same aforementioned Barack Hussein Obama famously mocked Mitt Romney's warnings about Russia by saying, the 1980s are calling, they want their foreign policy back. Since then, Putin's regime has invaded Ukraine, annexed Crimea, stole it, blatant aggression, intervened in Syria, menaced the Baltics, buzzed American ships, and launched relentless cyber attacks on the United States. All of these things acts of war. All of those actions are directly hostile to our strategic interests. Each of them makes true great power conflict more likely. And how have Republicans, the heretofore daddy party, the heretofore rational adult party, responded? After weeks of WikiLeaks releases and months of Trump apologetics for Russia's dictator, the Republicans, Freudian slip, yeah, I know. The Republicans nonetheless view Putin more favorably than their own president, who very much resembles Vladimir Putin. Between 2014 and today, Putin's approval ratings with Republicans have almost quadrupled, from 10% to 37%. His net negative rating is a mere 10 points. By contrast, the GOP net negative rating for Barack Obama is a whopping 64 points. Now, this is not this is not going soft on Barack Hussein Obama. But what has changed about Putin other than that the GOP messiah is pro-Putin? He's Putin's poodle. And that alone, and the fact that Putin was trying to help, he didn't. Trump would have won without Putin's efforts, but Putin was trying to help Trump get elected. And on that basis alone, and none other, because there isn't any, Putin becomes wildly popular among Republicans. Tell me how that isn't pure, undiluted Hatfield versus McCoy tribalism. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And always. Across the web, conservatives fill Twitter timelines and comment boards with pro-Putin comments. Some of this is astroturfed straight from Russia. Much of it is not. At least WikiLeaks is doing what the mainstream media won't, as if it's the media's job to hack computers. Wouldn't that be illegal? So much for the Republicans standing for the rule of law. Putin disrespects Obama, not the United States. Oh, oh, you people think that Putin is a Republican now? Well, at least Putin hates Islamic terrorists. I've seen that one quite a bit. Well, other than his close Iranian allies, the world's leading state supporter of Islamic terrorism. Oh, and his flat-out puppet, victorious with the fall of Aleppo this week, Bashar al-Assad. You see, we're seeing the terrible result of what the Pew Foundation has documented as negative partisanship. In other words, neither party stands or will take a stand for any idea, any principle. Everything they do is motivated by, well, if they hate it, we like it. If they're for it, we're against it, or vice versa. There's no thinking involved. It's all, just tell me that it doesn't sound like what I've been saying for the past year and a half, all emotion. No thinking, no rationality, no logic, just, bleep them. That's it. There's nothing left. No ideas, no policies, just at its heart, that's all it is. Two extended middle fingers. Americans hate the opposing political party more than they like their own tribe. They're willing to believe the worst possible things about their political opponents. Not just willing to believe, they're absolutely convinced of it, so much so that if you say, oh, come on, they're not, I'm not for them either. I've been opposed to them for my entire adult lifetime, 36 years, but they're not that bad. And well, you're one of them then! I mean, that's exactly how Trumplicans, if you criticize Donald Trump in the slightest, they call you a liberal leftist. That's not an appellation. That's character assassination. When you no longer stand for anything, you will not only say anything, but what you say has no meaning. Labels, names have no meaning. To a Trumplican, a Trumpoid, a branch Trumpidian, liberal leftist means you don't bow down to Trump. That is dangerous, folks. It's a very, very dangerous mentality. I mean, what you have right now in America, if you want to know the lay of the land in America, the state of American politics, both parties are personality cults, and one party is about to lose theirs, so to speak, or I guess I should say, perhaps. I mean, Republicans have their messiah incoming. Democrats supposedly have their messiah, Barack Obama, on the way out. And the thing is, they are both, Obama and Trump, far more alike. They're virtual carbon copies of each other in every sense. In every possible sense. They are carbon copies of each other. And yet, their respective personality cults are just spit with hatred and rage. Which is why I say that Barack Obama is finally, his mission of fundamental transformation is complete, because he has fundamentally transformed his own party. He has fundamentally transformed the United States of America. And he has fundamentally transformed the Republican Party as well, because the Republican Party is now no different from the Democrats, no different ideologically, no different culturally. Neither will stand for anything, and yet both have leftist instincts, and they're both led by strutting authoritarian, tyrannical narcissists. Republican voters are used to Democrats calling them racist, sexist, homophobes. I stopped listening to that. I mean, they've been doing that for so long that they have drained those terms of all meaning. See the pattern? But that's mild compared with the staggering number of Democrats, more than half, who once believed that a Republican president attacked his own country, or knew that the 9/11 attacks were coming and did nothing to stop them. You know who else believed that? Donald Trump. Oh boy, I tell you what, Trumplicans, if you could only stand outside of it and see it for what it really is, you would wonder, how did I get in this? What happened to me? I mean, it really is a case of deprogramming. You don't debate Trumplicans, you just try to deprogram them. While I know of no similar widespread GOP belief that Obama is, there is. You know they do. Belief that Obama is committing mass murder against his own citizens, the entire Obama-dency has fed a conspiracy-rich environment on the right. Oh, let us tell the tale. While America has always been a partisan place, see, this is also an artifact, a side effect of how the left has dragged every aspect of society into the political arena. It used to be, way back when, that politics, there are areas of American life that had nothing to do with politics. That it wouldn't have even occurred to them to think that, well, this is a political issue? This is not a political issue. Remember partisanship stops at the water's edge in the foreign policy context? And then who could have thought? Who could have thought back in, let's say, the 70s, 60s and 70s, when I was growing up, who could have thought that transgenderizing bathrooms or marriage, who could have imagined that those kind of things would ever become political issues? I mean, if you had said that back then, the most you might have gotten is, well, these are the last days, so eventually, yeah, maybe these things might actually become issues. But other than that, people would have laughed at you. And the thing is, it's not, yeah, they would have been wrong, but they should have been right. Everything is in the political arena, and rather than continue to fight that, Republicans have just finally given up. After 8 years of Barack Obama had driven Republicans over the edge, to where they, in essence, said, if you can't beat them, join them. And so they went out and they got their own messiah, their own tyrant, their own dictator. That is when the Republican Party left me. And that's when it should have left Douglas V. Gibbs as well, which is another topic I'm not going to get into. So while America has always been a partisan place, the modern trends are terrible. It's one thing to see polarization in charts and graphs, as in the charts from Pew, but it's another thing entirely when you see members of the GOP shift, change, abandon, decades-old positions on Russia because the Russian dictator also seems to hate your political opponent. I mean, the numbers here. Democrats and Republicans more ideologically divided than in the past. Well, are they? Let's see. 1994. Consistent. This is the problem with trying to describe a graph verbally. Yeah, I could pick up the camera and show it to you on the screen, but then I'd never get the webcam arranged again. No, there's no way to do that, is there? Oh no, here. Hey, okay, I'm just trying to think on the fly here. Take a look at these graphs. Polarization, my friends. Look at that first chart. Over 20 years ago, the median Democrat and median Republican were relatively close together. Didn't change much, even 10 years later in 2004. But in the 2016 cycle, look at that, folks. Look at that. Now, I am no champion of bipartisanship or bipartisanism, whichever. It's just, that's the thing. I have always been a Reagan constitutional conservative. From day one, 1980, 36 years ago, when I was in high school, that's when I came of age politically in the Reagan Revolution, Ronald Reagan's election in 1980. And I've always subscribed to what the last great Democrat president, Grover Cleveland, said in 1888. What's the use of getting elected or running for office if you don't stand for something? I've never changed my views. And it seems like everybody around me, and especially after the 2016 cycle and Trump mania, it's like everybody else has changed their views. I've remained as constant as the Northern Star. And I recognize a New York liberal con man when I see one. I don't throw principles aside for partisan advantage. And that's what this really represents. I mean, if people are rational and thinking and not emotional, they look at issues, they don't look at party labels. And when you do that, there's greater possibility for overlap, for finding areas of common ground. But if you look at that 2015 version of this 10-item scale of political values, you see tribalism, because tribalism says if the other side is for it, we're against it. Or if the other side is against it, we're for it. Without looking at what the it is and really thinking about it. And how does it interact with your philosophy, your ideology, your values? And I mean, this is Hatfield and McCoy's territory, ladies and gentlemen. When you look at the other graph, many Republicans, Democrats view the other party as a threat to the nation's well-being. Now, Democrats have been saying this for years about Republicans. So much so that I just tuned it out years ago because it didn't, I mean, in other words, what they were saying was, bleep you. Well, okay, we knew that. And you even saw it. I think it was Bill Maher who recently said, came out and admitted, we've been calling Republicans horrible names. We've been calling Republicans a threat to the nation's well-being and racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, want to blow up the world, blah, 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 Christianist, theocrats, and just everything else. Hate women, war on women, and all this stuff. All this crap, all this nonsense. And Bill Maher admitted, we've been saying these things for all these years, and we never really meant them. It was just for partisan advantage. We've been crying wolf. And his lamentation was, now these things are actually coming true. We created our own Frankenstein monster. We said it, and now we've actually brought it about. We have driven our opponents to become what we've always accused them of being, falsely, up until now. Bill Maher, I tell you what, I never had any use for Bill Maher, but that was a remarkable concession. That was a remarkable admission. There almost seemed to be a little bit of Magneto after he at the end of X-Men 3: The Last Stand, when Beast had injected him with the cure, taking away his mutation, just as Dr. Jean Grey as Dark Phoenix was starting to destroy everything, and Magneto looked back and said, "My God, what have I done?" It's like Bill Maher in this admission. It's, oh no, we've actually brought this about. We've turned the Republicans into what we always falsely accused them of being. And at the worst possible time for Democrats, because their Messiah, supposedly, is on his way out, and they have no defense. Karma, anyone? But yeah, Republican attitudes about the Democrat Party. Just even 2 years ago. Let's see. 37% of Republicans saw the Democrat Party as a threat to the nation's well-being. Now it's 2 years later, 45%, which is greater than the Democrats' reciprocal view of the Republicans. Almost said us. Habit, 36 years. Yeah, 2014. In fact, the percentage of Democrats who see the Republican Party as a threat to the nation's well-being over the past 3 years, lower than the percentage of Republicans who see the Democrat Party as a threat to the nation's well-being. So not only has the Republican Party joined Democrats in pure, undiluted, primitive tribalism, they're exceeding them. The GOP has become worse than the Democrats in that regard. Now, these trends simply cannot continue if we wish America to remain reasonably unified and capable of function any degree of rational consistency in foreign or domestic affairs. In other words, the adults need to take back the reins. But the adults were all rejected in favor of Donald Trump. And I'll guarantee, it's like I've been saying, Trump is going to lay waste to the GOP, lay waste to conservatism, and the Democrats are going to come back with Julian Castro in 2020, and they're going to just, the permanent Democrat majority will become a reality, folks. And, if you want to believe that, well, no, Trump, you're always underestimating Trump. Don't misunderestimate Trump. Trump's going to be a success. Trump's going to do it. Okay, well, fine. Let's take that scenario. What's the Republican Party already becoming? What has it already become? It's become another party of the left. The Republican Party of 2016 is the Democrat Party of 2000. I'd say that's fair. Yeah. The Republican Party of 2016 is the Democrat Party of 2000 before they descended into lunacy after losing the 2000 election to George W. Bush. Although, I don't think it's really, it might be more recent than that, folks. It might, as a matter of fact, here's the proper comparison. The Republican Party of 2016 is the Democrat Party pre-Obama. I think that captures it. That's about right. Because the looniness and loopiness, it's very close. It's just pre-Obama. Although you really can't say pre-Obama, since Trump is just as much of a leftist tyrant, egotist, despot as Obama, so maybe it's like I've been saying, not a dime's worth of difference. That cliche that has been around as long as I've been alive, and it's always been BS, is now true. There's not a dime's worth of difference between the Republican and Democrat parties, except which party's strutting cosmic narcissist is in power, or shortly will be, supposedly. As power is centralized in Washington, we will lurch from tribe to tribe, counting mainly on our nation's structural restraints rather than on the integrity or goodwill of our leaders to rein in excesses. And those structural restraints, how successful were they over the past 8 years? Not very. And since Barack Obama was a tyrant who centralized power in the executive branch, his pen, phone, and putter, the 3 branches of government in the Obama era. Since he did that, Republicans are going to, would any Republican object if Donald Trump did the exact same things? Of course they wouldn't. They'd cheer him. And this is why Donald Trump is as mortal, if not an even greater, more mortal threat to the United States Constitution than Barack Obama was. Doug. It's a formula for continued deepening of polarization. Dare I even say civil war? Which would just suit Vladimir Putin just fine. It's ultimately a formula for division and the aforementioned Second Civil War. In the meantime, however, we face a number of immediate practical difficulties. The Russian ambassador to Turkey was just gunned down in Ankara, Turkey, last weekend. Photos and videos are racing around the internet. This is a grave diplomatic crisis. A NATO ally has failed to protect Russia's ambassador, a failure that comes months after that same NATO ally shot down a Russian aircraft. 2 of them, as a matter of fact. At the same time, the humanitarian crisis in Aleppo is escalating as American and Russian warplanes share the same Syrian skies. And what do Trump supporters say? Well, we should just get our planes out of the sky and leave it to the Russians. Yeah. Yeah, leave the Middle East to the Russians. That's not a good idea, ladies and gentlemen. See, now, because Barack Obama has weakened American positions, American military strength, respect for America around the world, nobody takes us seriously anymore. In fact, after the fall of Aleppo, the Russians, the Iranians, and the Syrians are gathering in that same Ankara, Turkey, to discuss the disposition of the Middle East. We're not even there. We are officially irrelevant, which is entirely consistent with Trump isolationist foreign policy. But now that we are in a position of supreme weakness, and we are, now is the time for wisdom, prudence, and a meaningful strategic vision. In in a manner of speaking, as Black Widow asked Captain America in Captain America Civil War, you're not going to punch your way out of this, Steve, are you? Well, we can't. We don't have the strength. We don't have the military capability. We don't have the influence. We don't have the prestige. We don't have the international respect. Nobody takes us seriously anymore. And so we, in other words, the Trump bull in a china shop approach, we can't back it up. We can't back it up. I mean, the time to do that, the time to intervene in Syria, not on the ground, no-fly zones would have been sufficient. I mean, the reverse of that is pretty much what the Russians did. They just used air power against the opponents of the Assad regime, not to fight any global war on terror, but to take over Syria, in essence. But what we need now is a president with wisdom, prudence, and a meaningful strategic vision. Does that sound anywhere remotely close to Donald Trump? I mean, Donald Trump is not wise. Donald Trump is not prudent. And Donald Trump has no strategic vision. What we have, well, I didn't have anything to do with it. What American voters have put in the White House is the diametric opposite of what this country needs. And Hillary Clinton wouldn't have provided it either, in case you were wondering. I mean, Obama's vision has failed, and Trump's vision is the same as Obama's. The world stands at greater risk for great power conflict than at any time since the end of the Cold War. And we're not in a position to fight any such conflict. We would lose that conflict, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump won't get the benefit of a learning curve. I made that observation a week ago. The world is already coming at him hard and fast, and the idea that he or any Republican feels any degree of goodwill towards Putin for Putin's conduct during an American election is chilling indeed. Trump's political standing is irrelevant compared with American national interests, but try telling that to Trump supporters. I saw one post something where he said, I think it was with regard to the Federal Reserve raising the interest rates a quarter point. And they've been zero for almost a decade now to forestall the inevitable fiscal crisis that Obama has guaranteed. He's locked in. It's baked into the cake, so to speak. And he said, he accused Janet Yellen of doing this to Trump. Oh, this doesn't look good for Trump. And I left a comment saying, who cares how it looks for Trump? Think about whether this is good or bad for the country. Who cares what it looks like for Trump? Trump is not the country. See, this is the tribalist personality cult thinking that, well, my God equals the country. That, where you see that? Banana republics at best, dictatorships at worst. Trump supporters are no better than Obama supporters. Period. That's what's dangerous, ladies and gentlemen. Trump's political standing is irrelevant compared with American national interests, which he doesn't stand for, frankly. It's time to squelch any American regard for Putin, to stop viewing our national interests through an entirely partisan lens, and to face up to the real challenge, protecting our nation from threats that could render the 2016 election a mere footnote to a sad and terrible history. But as I've been saying for a long, long time now, That ship has already sailed, folks. From the world stage to small-scale security, tribalism reigns, folks, as Jim Jamatis pointed out at Red State on Tuesday. Trump retains private security at rallies. Left complains about goon squads. When if the positions were switched, they'd be doing the exact same thing. See, it's only bad when the other side does it. Anything is good or bad by one criterion: does the other side do it? If the other side does it, it's terrible. If we do it, it's great. Again, that's the Democrats have had this tribalist mentality for decades, but now it's infected and taken over the Republican Party as well. Now, reportedly, Donald Trump will retain. Now, think about this, folks. I want to point something out to you. Or ask you a question, as the case may be. Is Donald Trump not president? President-elect? Why, he is. The Electoral College made it official this week. 304 electoral votes of the 306 he actually earned. Donald Trump is president-elect. He's going to be, well, if Barack Obama leaves on January 20th, knock wood, the 45th president of the United States. He won. He's going to be president. So, whose job is it to protect the president and his family and so forth? The Secret Service, the United States Secret Service. It has been their job to protect the President of the United States for a century and a half. But obviously they haven't always been successful. The record is not perfect, but that's their job, and they do it quite well. So now we have here, Donald Trump will retain his private security detail in some fashion after he's inaugurated. Now, I thought about it, and against the backdrop of history, and the comparison that came to mind was the SA in Nazi Germany. Before Hitler took power, he had his own private, what you might say, his own private security detail. And what they were thugs in uniforms. It's like I say, the job of the Secret Service is to protect the president. That's the core job of the Secret. They do some other things. But the core job of the United States Secret Service is the protection of the President of the United States. And the Vice President, et cetera, et cetera. But that's their core job. And the job of every Secret Service agent, protection. Now that means, yeah, they're heavily armed, and they got rifles, and they got all kinds of resources. I get that. His job is to stop the bad guys before they can harm the president. But I want to take you back to that sidewalk outside, I forget the name of the hotel in Washington, D.C., in March of 1981. Remember when Ronald Reagan was shot by, I can't remember his name right now, but the guy who was loopy and had a boner for Jodie Foster. I can't remember his name right now, but remember how that happened. He was standing right, the gunman, the shooter was right close to the president, and all of a sudden, and Reagan was coming out of this hotel in Washington, D.C. He'd just given a speech, and he was, waving to the crowds, and he had the trademark, good-natured, genial grin on his face, and right as he was getting near his limo, the armored, limo that all presidents have, you heard the shots ring out. Bam, 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 bam. And what happened? Well, one of the agents, Secret Service, or a couple, well, one or two of the Secret Service agents grabbed Reagan, threw him into the back of the limo to get him out of harm's way. The other threw himself in front of the shooter. So you see, the job of the Secret Service is protection. Now that can mean stopping the bad guy, and it does, but it also means you will take a bullet for the president. You will throw your body in front of bullets intended for the president of the United States. You will sacrifice your own life to save the president's. I mean, you remember the movie Air Force One? Harrison Ford, Glenn Close. Oh, what was Ed Harris the villain? I can't remember, but Harrison Ford played the president of the United States. Remember terrorists infiltrate and take over Air Force One and all that. And remember Russian fighters approach Air Force One with the intent of shooting it down and finishing the job that the Russian Spetsnaz special forces, special ops had begun. Remember that? Remember what one of the, because at that point, Air Force One had picked up some U.S. escorts, fighter escorts, and one of the Russian fighters fired a missile, and Air Force One was out of flares and air defenses. So remember what one of the U.S. fighter escorts did? Flew right in front of the missile and took the missile, and that pilot sacrificed himself to save the president of the United States. That's the function of the Secret Service. Yes, to stop the bad guys by any means necessary, but if it comes right down to it, you will sacrifice your life for the president of the United States. That's not the job of Trump's private security detail. The job of Trump's private security detail is to hurt people, to hurt opponents. They are thugs. They are not security. Their job, none of them are going to take a bullet for Trump. Their job is to hurt opponents, to knock heads, to riot, to rumble. That's not security, that is gang warfare. Because elsewise, why does Trump need a private security detail when the Secret Service is there to protect him? Oh, well, the Secret Service is corrupt and Obama's good. Then reform the damn thing! Secret Service reform! You don't bring your own private thug detail. And the Secret Service protects the president, period. If you don't like the job that they're doing, reform it. See, every day it seems the incoming regime, we don't have administrations anymore, we have regimes, is departing from the logistical norms of for the presidency, which is not a good thing. Politico reported on this unorthodox move on Monday. Quote, the arrangement represents a major break from tradition and sanity. All modern presidents and presidents-elect have entrusted their personal security entirely to the Secret Service and their event security mostly to local law enforcement, according to presidential security experts and Secret Service sources. But Trump, and note this passage in particular very clearly and carefully, Trump, who puts a premium on loyalty and has demonstrated great interest in having forceful security at his events, meaning they're not there for protection, they are there to hurt opponents, has opted to maintain an aggressive and unprecedented private security force led by Keith Schiller A retired New York City cop and Navy veteran who started working for Trump in 1999 as a part-time bodyguard, eventually rising to become his head of security. Now, personal loyalty, forceful security. You know, the Sturmabteilung, the SA, I mean, they may as well be wearing brown shirts for the function that they serve. And the interesting thing about the SA, the stormtroopers in Nazi Germany, was that when they were no longer of use to Adolf Hitler, they were gotten rid of. I don't, maybe it was that Hitler wanted to look more respectable since he was in power, you know. But he threw them aside. Remember the night of the long knives. I mean, the SA had served its purpose, it was outlived its usefulness, and so Hitler took care of them. And now I'm not suggesting that Trump is going to have his private security detail all murdered. I'm not suggesting that. But what I am suggesting is even Hitler got rid of the private security or the equivalent thereof. Doesn't look like Trump's doing that. I mean, you don't privatize security. You just don't. And the optics of it, especially the optics. I mean, look at the left-wing blog Salon.com. It's suddenly concerned about Trump's safety. If the quote, if the Politico article is correct, Trump's private security staffers have not been trained for this kind of work, and may actually make Trump less safe than if they were not there at all. All this raises the question of why he insists on having them around. You see, that's the other side. That's the other aspect of this. Trump wants private security so that he can hurt opponents. The Secret Service wouldn't do that, because the Secret Service job, their job is to protect the president. They're not there to rumble with political opponents. In other words, the mission and the degree of professionalism and expertise would not allow the Secret Service to do what Trump told them to do. So he just keeps private security who will do what he wants them to do. That's why he doesn't want the Secret Service. The Secret Service has ethics. The Secret Service knows what its mission is, and that doesn't include rumbling with the opposition. That's why he wants private security, because they are less professional, and they will do what he tells them to do, whatever that happens to be, whether it's legal or not. This is just one more way in which it's one more Trump scandal just waiting to erupt. The optics that this man is going to create for the GOP are horrific. I mean, you think that, I mean, right now the Democrats are in disarray. There's no question about it. And all the whining, all the recounts, and campaigns, and all the whining, and throw out the Electoral College. You know, yeah, you only want to throw out the Electoral College because you didn't win it. But all that stuff is going to be, Democrats are going to be set up for 2018 and 2020 in very, very short order, folks. They really are. They have no idea. You have no idea. I mean, the Trump scandals that are going to erupt, and we know how thin-skinned he is. So it's, you know, this is why it's, in a sense, it's going to be popcorn and frosty beverage worthy in terms of being entertaining. Is all the Schadenfreude. I mean, the Schadenfreude is going to be overwhelming. The I told you so's. And the GOP is going to, and they destroyed them. When they nominated Trump, they destroyed themselves in the long term. See, let's see. Well, it's now. Do they care about Trump's safety? Well, gets back to Salon.com. That is. This gets back to the tribalism aspect. I mean, it used to be that. Well, I think Bob Dole put it well, if naively, in 1996, in his nomination acceptance speech at the GOP convention in San Diego that year. He said, "The Bill Clinton is not my enemy; he is my opponent." See, it used to be that you could oppose somebody politically, but not wish them any harm. You don't say, "I hope they die." Like how leftists have been saying that about Clarence Thomas for the past 25 years. I hope you die. I had a Trump supporter wish. He'd he said right to my, well, metaphorical face. It was online. He said, "I hope you die." Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's where we're at. It used to be political differences were not to the extent of wishing or inflicting personal, or physical, or any other kind of harm on people, but on opponents. But that ship has sailed too. So does Salon.com wish death on Donald Trump? I don't know. Do they care whether or not he dies? I'd like to think that they do. And yet here's Jim Jamatis saying, they don't care. They don't care if he lives or dies. They want him to die. Oh, well, okay. I hope that's not true. In other words, step back from that precipice of lunacy that so many people have already plunged headlong into. To finish the Salon quote, "It turns out that the main function of Trump's private security forces has been to deal with protesters at his rallies, which he has bizarrely continued to hold since the election and promises to continue to do so because that's the only thing that Trump cares about." I said this months ago. Trump doesn't want to be president. He just wants to prove he can win. He doesn't want the job. That's why he's trying to delegate everything to Mike Pence. It doesn't work that way. There are some things you cannot delegate. You cannot delegate being commander-in-chief. He wants to delegate that too. He doesn't want to do anything except keep going around to these rallies and just be worshipped for the next 4 years. He can't get enough of that. It's more egregious even than Obama. I mean, what does he need with the perks of the presidency? I mean, is he not rich? I mean, he has mentioned that a few times. Trump, that is. He's got his own planes, right? He can live wherever he wants. As Trump himself said, when asked about, well, what if you lose? He said, well, then I've got a pretty good life. Yeah, he's got a pretty good life, all right. What perk of the presidency could he not buy himself? What perk of the presidency did he not already have? The only thing that he gains with being president is responsibility and accountability. And being constantly embattled 24/7, except as the prey, not the hunter. Both Trump and his Marxian socialist detractors, since Trump is a national socialist, want to have their cake and eat it too. Trump wants to be president, but he doesn't want to accept the established security apparatus as is, because they won't do what he wants them to do, which is what the things he wants them to do are extra legal. He still doesn't want to admit the apparent conflict, the conflicts of interest uniquely inherent to his presidency, whereas the Marxian left wants to be able to protest his rallies and try to provoke violence, but they don't want Trump to have security people aimed at preventing it. which is the job of the Secret Service and local law enforcement. He wants to rumble. And you can't do that. That lowers you to their level. Trump is appearing only before friendly crowds. Well, yeah. What else would he do? With many people who have been to Trump rallies before and consider themselves part of his movement, in other words, all his suckers, rather than using the opportunity to wind down hostilities, as one might expect a new president with zero mandate, he lost the popular vote, remember, to do, he's winding them up because Trump gotta be Trump. Boy, to you Trump supporters, you have no idea of the crazy train on which you've booked passage, I'm telling you. This is where his goon squads come in. The specialty of these folks seems to be in bringing the hammer down on dissent. Oh boy, those would be wonderful optics. Where the Secret Service concentrate, what have I just been telling you? Bring the hammer down on dissent. Where the Secret Service concentrates on keeping the president safe, these special bodyguards concentrate on protesters, beating them up. And then they had some footage from Trump's thank you rally in Michigan on December 9th after he gave the signal to get him. Appearing only before friendly crowds was Obama's standard operating procedure for his tenure. Politics is more stage managed than Oscar night. Still, there are probably people who believed that women routinely fainted in Obama's presence. But the rallies do give Trump the air of a banana republic strongman, which is exactly what he is, and his personality cult thinks that's just great. Because they don't believe in the Constitution, they don't believe in America, they just want revenge. And they're no different than the Marxian left. Saying that you're going to be president for all the people to a stacked crowd looks pretty dodgy. Greg Gutfeld was right when he said that a similar Obama victory lap would have caused many on the right to come unglued.
Can't say lock her up. I guess he can say build a wall. But what is he going to say? I would hope, and in praying for his success, that he would say, I'm here to unify the country.
Yeah, the unity is the important part.
Yeah, and I'm here to build support for my policies, and here are my policies. Now, if he's going about celebrating the carrier thing again, today's paper's just overflowing with, hey, guess what? This is not free market.
It's a Bibla.
You know, I mean, it's unbelievable.
All right, Juan, before you jump the shark, we're going to do that in the next block. So let's talk about just communications, and the messaging here. What should he say to these supporters?
Well, I think he will thank them for coming out, for recognizing that he was a different kind of politician, and then he will probably talk about his cabinet pick. I actually think that the process has actually been more transparent than before. I don't ever remember before C-SPAN setting up a camera to watch people coming in. So you actually know who is going in and out.
You're a naked cowboy. Talk about transparent.
I mean, very.
You can see everything.
Obviously. No corset there.
No.
Not at all.
And tidy whities.
It will be interesting to see what he says about unifying the country. Obviously, you're going to be in a crowd of possibly 18,000 people. They adore you. That's great, but there's a whole bunch of people who still are reeling from the election. How does he reach out to them? Does he have to? No. But I think that he probably will in some way. You'll see some sort of outreach in
No, I think it's important for him to reach out to people who are not supporters. And what we've seen in the last few weeks, actually, is his favorable numbers have gone up.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is that he doesn't feel like he has to.
No, but I think he has to, because as president, as president-elect and in the future as president, I think it's important to say to all Americans, I'm for you. The problem with this is these are all Trump supporters.
Yeah, but this is what this is. You see what it is on the bottom banner? Yeah. Trump's thank you tour begins. He's going to go around the country and say, my guess is he's going to be, you've been flyover country for too long. Your voice was heard. We're doing something different.
That's grievance politics.
And he's going to try and muster up support for his policy initiative.
No, I agree with
which I think is very, very smart.
If he's that, if he does that, wait, hold on. So that's grievance. That's grievance politics.
Fine. My point is that there's plenty of time. There's at least 4, maybe 8 years to reach across the aisle, offer the olive branch and say, yes, let's unite the country on both sides. And some of the things, frankly, that he's proposing,
well, I just hope
Democrats will like more than Republicans.
He might be presidential. At some point, he's got to go from the candidate to acting serious.
I think you could be both. I think that he has to talk unity, because I'm going to enter the hypocritical world that no one cares about. But if Obama had done a victory lap, this network would explode. We would be frothing. We'd have pitchforks running down Pennsylvania Avenue. So we have, but I realized, you know,
did he have something like that?
No.
For 8 years.
Oh, but that's what I'm saying. Like, we gave him a hard time for the permanent campaign.
No, that was that was after he became president.
I know.
He didn't do it. He didn't do it after
he does the unity thing.
He
He's fine.
showed up at the Roman Coliseum, basically saying, "I'm the emperor."
He had with the little thing around his head.
He lived a permanent victory lap. He was. You're right. He was an 8-year victory lap.
Oh, it sounds like we're going to miss President Obama. Right?
Oh, he's not going anywhere.
You see, tribalists aren't real big on consistency. They judge actions to be good or bad according to who does them. I did say that earlier in this video, didn't I? Not according to any moral or ethical code of conduct, not according to any ideology, not according to any philosophy or coherent set of ethics. Just, if they do it, it's bad. If we do it, it's good. Hatfields and McCoys. This is why so many social media political arguments boil down to, oh yeah, well your guy did it too. Trump is probably keeping his security people on board. Well, this is giving him the benefit of the doubt that I don't give Trump any benefit of the doubt, because he has not earned any benefit of the doubt ever. He has to prove it over a long period of time before I'll give him any benefit of the doubt. He's keeping his security people on board because they will do things for him that the Secret Service will not. Period. Exclamation point. I mean, and Jamatus says it here. I mean, has the Secret Service's performance of late been stellar? No, not as their optics have been really bad, shall we say? You know, fence jumpers and hookers and drunk on duty, and I mean, I forget the name of the private security guard. In fact, that's a good point. Prior to what led to the Secret Service was, remember, Abraham Lincoln had a couple of security guards, and the night he was assassinated at Ford's Theater, April 14th, 1865. And one was wandered away from his post to watch the play that Lincoln was watching from the presidential box. And the other was asleep outside in a streetcar. That's what convinced the powers that be that, hey, maybe we do need a specific organization dedicated to the protection of the President of the United States. So that's kind of bringing things full circle, except for the fact that nothing's happened to Obama or his family. Nothing's happened to them. So when it comes to what really truly matters, the Secret Service has not failed. I mean, sure, fence jumpers and Colombian hooker scandals don't inspire confidence, but the proper route, what did I say earlier, folks? The proper route would be to make the Secret Service great again, reform, instead of trying to supplant them with Trump's goon squad, who, again, he's keeping them because they will do things that the Secret Service would not do. He wants his own stormtroopers, in other words. So what's the big deal? Salon asks. So far, the Secret Service hasn't said anything, although former agents seem to believe this is a dangerous situation that could interfere with Trump's real security. Turf battles and the like. And, you know, Trump is all about personal loyalty. So who do you think that he would turn to first? Would he turn to his goon squad or the Secret Service? But what makes people nervous about this arrangement is the idea of a political leader having his own security guards and a growing group of fanatical followers who are being worked up and fed propaganda by the president, who happens to be a demagogue. Precisely. But here again, Salon is making perfect sense when they say that, but the spirit out of which they say it is just as tribalist. Jamadis says it all right here. Salon's only problem is that it's no longer their demagogue feeding propaganda to fanatical followers. Again, precisely. This problem is bipartisan, my friends. Who knows? Maybe the Democrats can be pulled back from their mania by the excesses of Herr Trump. Stranger things have happened in American politics. Now, some may remember that when Bill Clinton first took office, he floated the idea of using Arkansas state troopers for security in addition to or in lieu of the Secret Service. Why did he do that? Because, well, it was because he assumed that he wouldn't be able to get the Secret Service to go out and round up bimbos for him to nail like the troopers did for him as governor of Arkansas. Yeah, pretty much. Boy, that seems so much more innocent than what he wants private security to do for him. Oh, not to say that they won't be doing that for Trump as well. I mean, remember, Melania is not going to be with him in the White House, remember? He's not bringing his wife to the White House. His daughter is going to serve as White House hostess, the equivalent of First Lady. Melania is not going to be there. No, it's going to be Ivanka who's the White House, the equivalent of a First Lady. And given what Trump has said about his daughter in the past, maybe more than just an equivalent, but we'll see. So in that situation, does anybody doubt that Trump is going to be importing these to grab? Yeah, he will. As First Lady, Hillary used opponents' FBI files and private investigators to dig up dirt on Bill's bimbos to use against them, either for keeping them silent or ruining them if they spoke out. Now, I'm sure many of the people who were outraged by all that will attack anyone questioning Trump's decision to use private security. In other words, if you're like me and you're standing outside of this sorry-ass mess, and you're scratching your head wondering, well, I thought that Republicans stood for, principle. I thought that they stood for something. I thought they believed in a coherent worldview. And that the reason that they had such a problem with Bill Clinton and Barack Obama was that Clinton and Obama violated that worldview. Well, now you know better. They didn't care. No Republican, no what we now know as conservative, gave a rat's ass if Bill Clinton imported bimbos into the White House. They didn't care about his scandals. They didn't care about any of it. The only thing that they had a problem with was that it was Clinton and later Obama doing these things. They didn't have any problem with the acts themselves. It was the fact that it was Democrats that were doing it. If a Democrat does something, well, that's terrible, that's awful, that's horrible. If a Republican does it, perfectly fine. And vice versa, Democrats have the same mentality. The thing is, the Democrats have had that mentality for decades. Now it's infected the Republican Party as well. Which is why I say I didn't leave the Republican Party. The Republican Party left me by nominating Donald Trump. And like I say, all the talk about draining the swamp misses the mark because Washington isn't a swamp, it's a sewer. And everyone thinks the stink only comes from the other side. Well, that was somewhere close to the truth up until now. Now the stink is on both sides. And like I say, stock up on the popcorn, snacks, and frosty beverages because the schadenfreude for Trump supporters has only just begun. Told you so.